I'm at the very, very beginning when I feel that I and we, the other entrepreneurs in residence, the other mentors, the other coaches, can make the biggest impact to make sure that the trajectory increases the odds for success.
You're listening to Meet Long Island, where every week we speak with business owners from all across Long Island and dig deep into how they started, how they grew, and what they are doing now. You may recognize some of the people and places behind them, but we will uncover the stories that you haven't heard yet. Your host, Arthur Frischman, is a native Long Islander, a Northport Tiger, and launched his first business here at the age of 16. As a serial entrepreneur for the last 40 years, he loves speaking to other business people about their daily grind and what keeps them in the game. Thanks for joining us today. Now, let's go meet Long Island.
Welcome to Meet Long Island, episode 4. And before we get started, if you were on YouTube, please go ahead and hit subscribe and hit that bell and give us a follow. We'll let you know every time we post a new video. And of course, the same thing on Spotify. Today, we have Aaron Foss, the developer of Nomorobo, an award-winning app that stops spam calls, a Sachem Flaming Arrow, and a native Long Islander. Welcome, Aaron, to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Aaron, go ahead. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. Let our listeners know just a little bit about you personally.
Yeah, I born and raised on Long Island, native Long Islander. I love it out here. I live up in Port Jeff, and I'm a guy like a technical guy with an MBA. So even going back to early days as a kid, where I was big into BBSs, I had like modems, and like way in the mid 90s. And at Sachem, we started the Internet Club, which we called the Web Slingers. And this was I graduated in 96. So it was like 95 to 96. That was before the internet, looked like what the internet was. So I've always been interested in that and technical. My undergrad, I went to Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, for my undergrad was in information technology. And then I also bolted on an MBA at the same time. So I did a 7-year program in 5 years. Popped out with 2 degrees, and all I wanted to do was work for a large company. I had, worked with these kind of small companies and even here on Long Island when I was doing like my co-ops and internships and things. And so I went to work at Symbol Technologies, which was right on the expressway. They were acquired by Motorola, and then they were acquired by Zebra. But I guess like it was one of those lessons that you first learn. Like my first day, my boss showed me how to check out a conference room, cover up that little window with paper, and that way you could hide from everyone and nobody would, you wouldn't have to do anything. And this was like day one. And I was like, that doesn't sound like corporate. Well, I mean, it might sound like corporate America, but it doesn't sound like something I want to do. But I also have a kind of a crappy attitude sometimes. So even to this day, and back then it was even worse. But I said, I'm like, okay, like from day one, I was like, this is not going to work, but let me give it a try. And so I did my best, and I was working on projects with like the CEO, and I was developing all this, what would later become like marketing tracking. Like these things didn't exist back in the mid 90s, but we set up, it was like go.symbol.com. Every ad had a unique code. But this stuff was, again, like it's table stakes nowadays, but back then it was really pretty revolutionary. Worked there for a year and then spun off and started my own consulting company, and they became my first client.
You said modem, and all I heard in my head was the AOL logon. That's what I heard. That's what I heard when you said.
Oh, sure, right. You've got mail. Yeah. I'll go back earlier. There was like Prodigy and Delphi, all the CompuServe, all that stuff. But yeah, that was a fun time.
With your email addresses were your numbers. Was a numbered email. Yeah, I recall.
It's exactly. Remember, like again, you get all those CD-ROMs that were mailed to your mailbox.
Exactly. So, okay, you sold off, you had a software component that you sold off to Groupon, correct? And then as a part of Techstars.
More successful than others. Others were huge failures. And in that time, I really kind of like learned entrepreneurship. Again, let's say between 2002 to 2000 and let's say 10, 11-ish. And like in 2011, I kind of got my big break. This was like I was an actor, right? Like I was cast in my first, feature length movie. That was a company called Side Tour, and it was a marketplace for unique experiences. It became Airbnb Experiences, if anybody ever used that, or Viator, those were the competitors in the space at the time. But basically, peer-to-peer marketplace, just like Etsy, but instead of getting like hand knit hats and gloves and, things like that, you'd be able, if you were coming into a city, you'd be able to get like a local tour guide. So take you to different places, and you could take some guy's sailboat or whatever. And me and three other co-founders, they had the idea. We kind of assembled all together like Wonder Twins or Voltron or whatever. And then we pitched an accelerator program called Techstars. And what they do is they run you through a 90-day program of not knowing anything to having a big demo day in front of investors. And that's kind of like how I started to hit my stride. I learned a ton during that program.
Okay. So now we met at a tech center called Launchpad a few years back, probably, 6 years ago by now, I'm guessing, somewhere around that. And you have had at that point, an app called Nomorobo, which is a robocall blocker. Tell me how that came about. Now, we were going back and forth before, and I've got it on my phone and you have it on your phone. I actually have a cup still in my house. You have the yellow cups that you used to give out. Yeah. Still have one. And
I have some over there, and I still use them all the time. Yeah, I know. I love that. They're everybody. So I've gotten that a couple of, like, we have pencils that people love and cups. I was like, well, love the software too.
So talk to me about that. How did that come about? How did Robo Destroyer come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sometimes you find businesses and sometimes businesses find you. And oddly, Nomorobo is one that found me. So after SideTour was acquired, they were acquired by Groupon, I was kind of like figuring out like, okay, what's the next thing to do? Should I do consulting? And I said to, everybody, my friends and my family, I'm like, I'm not doing another startup. I'm not going to do another startup, taking a little bit of a break. Yeah, that was, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of emotional highs and lows. But I couldn't help myself. Like I was reading TechCrunch one day, and there was the FTC had put out a call. It was called the Robocall Challenge. And they said, right, can anybody out there, normal human beings, help us to solve the robocall problem? And honestly, even before that, I didn't know what a robocall was. I didn't get a ton of them at the time. And this is going back to 2013. But I like challenges, and I like big problems. And again, I'm a tech guy. I've always been interested in the phone system, as we were just talking about. And so I went and looked at the competition, and it was an impossible competition the way I looked at it. The specs were that it had to work on landlines, and it had to work on mobile, and it had to be easy to use, and it had to work. And, so it knocked out doing an app because that wouldn't work on landlines. And it knocked out doing a hardware box because that wouldn't work on mobile. And also, if you read between the lines, it felt like the FTC was saying, like, make a solution that can get to consumers without having to go through the carriers. And they didn't overtly say that, but that was the thing, right? Go back all those years ago, even to this day, carriers are not, stopping robocalls is not number one on their list, right? Getting money from consumers is number one on their list. Their customer support is not fantastic, right? All the pieces that they need to do. So I just noodled on it. I love constraints because I feel like they breed creativity. So I said, okay, well, let me just look at all of the pieces that I have at my disposal. There's there's voicemail, there's three-way calling, there's, all these different things. And there was this one technology, it's called simultaneous ring, where it lets your phone number, your phone ring in multiple places. So how like on landline in your house, you have like one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, right? Somebody calls there, they all ring at the same time. SIM ring is the same thing, except the devices can be anywhere. So your house phone can ring at the same time that your cell phone can ring, at the same time that your spouse's cell phone can ring. And whoever answers the call first gets that call, and all of the rest of the devices stop ringing. So my brain kind of assembled it and put together and was like, okay, well, if I build a system where I give you a phone number to put into your SIM ring list, well, then my server, right, is going to get the call at first. And then if it's a bad call, we'll pick it up and hang it up for you. Basically, it's just like having someone sitting at your house watching what was going through. And that was how it kind of started. I built out. Now I know what I've also learned, all of my entrepreneurial ventures, is sometimes you have to have the sizzle, you have to have the steak. You have to be able to communicate your idea, and you have to be able to communicate it simply and quickly. And, some people were submitting 40, 50, 60 page white papers and all this other. I put together a 2-minute pitch. I prototyped it out kind of in a weekend. And then I did a video and I show how it demoed it, and I gave the database schema and everything, and I submitted it. And couple of months later, I get an email that I beat 800 other people and won the FTC's robocall challenge.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I don't want to geek out, but go back and explain this to me again. I want to get to the FTC challenge also, but explain to me this again in how this physically works. And does it still work the same way that you originally designed it?
So this is our landline product, and it still does work because that was our first product, right? Now we'll get over to the mobile side.
Okay.
But in so many words, when you go through, it's a relatively quick enable process. You put our phone number in your carrier's simultaneous ring list. Mm-hmm. And what that has is we're basically just watching every call that comes in. And if it is a bad caller based on our algorithm, right, we answer it, which stops the ringing in the house, and then we hang up. And what happened there is we need to get a lot of data to be able to figure out which are the bad calls. And obviously we want to do this in a privacy respecting kind of way, right? That's number one. So we can't just, tap into everybody's phone. But basically what that allows us to do is we see hundreds of millions of calls every single month. And then the algorithm can start to work. Hey, is this a number that we haven't seen before? It doesn't really matter how we do the protection, right? Because we do protection on mobile very differently than on landline. But the key is having all that data, having all the models tuned, and in so many words like magic. People don't really care necessarily how it works, just that it does work. They want the good calls to get through. They want the bad ones to stay out. And now we've been seeing, same deal with text messages. Good text messages should come through. Bad text messages, we want to keep out.
Yeah, I can confirm that I have the app on my phone, and I can confirm it. It really does. On the phone, do I actually have 4 million phone numbers on my phone right now that it's scanning through every time?
Yeah, so the mobile version, and we just launched a new product this summer called Nomorobo Max. So our current version is, the old version is Nomorobo Basic, and the new version is Max. Basic, we are pushing a subset of our block list to your phone every 15 minutes. Is it the full 6 million? No. We know about over 6 million known robocallers, but at any point in time, there's roughly about 250,000 that are active in any day. We have to figure out, we have to respect data. We're sending you all of this information, and Apple doesn't make it exactly easy. They have some tools and things, but in so many words, yeah, it's a list of known numbers that you shouldn't answer. With Max, we're actually tied in at the network level. So it's at the network and the device level. We're able to actually go and analyze, scan, screen all unknown calls. And then we basically conditionally handle it. Should we screen this person? Should we send you an alert? Should we just record it? Should we block it? And those kinds of things. So it's more advanced, but it allows, like with Max, 100% protection against all the bad calls while still allowing all the good calls through.
Okay, so now you made the comment, landlines was the original, expanded. Now you do mobile, which right, and then you made the comment about text. You also blocking text, but not Nomorobo. So how do you go out about blocking the text calls, and how's that functionality?
Yeah, so it's built into Nomorobo. When you onboarded, you gave it permission to go and do that. And what's really interesting is, and again, I just got to take a step back. Like when we're dealing with contact lists and calls and phone calls and text messages, we're dealing with some of the most intimate data that anybody deals with, right? Its entire lives are digital. And when you're talking to people that you know or don't know, right? So we have to be able to balance that privacy aspect along with being able to do our job, right? And it's a balancing act. But number one, again, from the very beginning has always been about respecting privacy. And so with Apple, what they do on the text message side is they've figured out a way where any unknown messages, we can build into our app that they'll send it to our servers for analysis, but we don't know that it came from your phone. So we know the phone number that sent it and the body of the message. So that's why, and then we basically send back like, is that a good number? Is that a bad number? Good message or a good bad message? And what that lets us do is it lets us do our job and staying out of the way of you talking to your friends and your family. So same deal with the phone calls. If you're on your contact list, we stay out of the way. It's the unknown calls that we want to do our job for. So that's how we've been, and again, it's been baked in since day one. Some of the competition is owned by, these giant mega conglomerates that as soon as they see your data, they're using it to, God knows what. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's trying to sell you stuff, right? We've always come from a privacy first perspective and a protection first perspective.
Okay, so, and this comes from, I hate to say this, comes a little bit my background. Where does this go? I mean, my basic question is, can you stop spam emails? No, if you can get into the email, is that a future of this?
It's funny. I've been putting together our like 2023 goals and positioning and things. And right. So like, I don't know if this is too big, but right. I think the job of Nomorobo is to protect everyone's phones from illegal and unwanted calls, robocalls, right, and spam texts. We don't plan on going to the email side. We don't plan on going to the VPN side. We don't, right. There are a ton of other companies that are doing that now. Yep. And this is a giant empty spot for voice and text protection. Nobody is doing it. There's a handful of us that are doing it. And it's the most abused vector right now because it's so open, right? Could you imagine like running your email without spam protection or running your server without a firewall or antivirus, right? People are doing that every single day with their phone. Anyone, anywhere in the world can call, interrupt, and try and scam you. Anywhere, anyone in the world can send you a spam text with a link or not a link or whatever and scam you. And there is very little ways to protect yourself. Come in with Nomorobo, boom, you get that protection that you need.
That's amazing. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking through all these things in my head, what I get through, what spam I get through. And I see it seems to me, by the way, the political campaigns are about the worst.
Well, and this is where you're touching on something, right? And that's why, illegal and unwanted. And this is people of day one, right? My investors, when I was doing my seed pitch and everything, they were like, well, what's going to stop the carriers from doing this? And exactly the example, like with the political calls, you tell me one carrier that will stop political calls and text messages. Zero, right? But tell me who wants to get those. Zero people, which is why you need a service like Nomorobo that stops unwanted. We are an editorial service. We stop what we decide is not a wanted call, is not a wanted text message. And there's a lot of gray areas. Again, political, debt collection, legal, telemarketing, right? When it really just boils down to it, you're hiring us as your call screener. We're making that decision. If you like it, great. You stay up as a customer. If you don't think that we're doing a good job, you turn it off, you go to the competition, do something like that.
Where do you see, you launched this in 2011. We're 10, 11 years into this.
2013. Yeah, we're 9 years. Yep.
2013. So 9 years into this, where do you see this going? How do you see this app going in the future? I mean, are you expanding the product? You said you weren't getting into spam. You're focused on your niche. Is the focus just getting it better?
So definitely the focus is on protecting the voice and text communication channels, right? It is super vital. It's what we do best. There are not a lot of good alternatives in the market right now. So effectively, right, the question is, how do we protect every phone in the world, right? We can do it with an app. Yeah, takes a lot of effort. And we still have our consumer side, and it works great, and we love doing it that way. And we're really excited about partnering with larger companies that already have some security and privacy protection foundation that they can go and use our data, our apps to then go and power those kinds of things. So we know what we do well, and we know we're a very lean team. I mean, we're barely 20 people, but we spend 100% of our time on this, and we really leverage technology because there's no way to do this without having a massive amount of data and a massive amount of technology answer. If we're just going to wait for people to go and report the number, like the FTC does, or if you go and forward it to spam, whatever, when you get it, the horse is out of the barn. The problem is already there. You need to have this proactive kind of piece. You need the scanning. So yeah, I don't think this is small or tiny by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, I think it's only going to get bigger in the future.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. The more I get a lot of technical questions, and I don't want to get deep into the technical part of it here. So you're going to see this is going to continue to grow. I have the app, and I got to tell you, I wish it wasn't buried in my phone right now. Yeah. So we're up at 6 million. You can see it. 6,085,000. Yeah.
There you go. 85,000. Yeah. Well, look, and I'll tell you one of the things that we haven't touched on this, but I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially here on Long Island, and the newer entrepreneurs, and so many people come to me. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if we're okay. In general, it's not a good way to start a business. What is the problem that you are solving, right? And so what I'm privileged enough to be able to work people through it is, right, how can you go and solve that problem for them in a magical kind of way. So that's ultimately what I'm excited about, again, moving into the future and things.
So one thing I want to touch on before we go to talk to another topic, you testified in front of the Senate.
3 times. Yeah. Congress 3 times, Senate and House of Representatives. I did Senate once, and not that it matters because it's like, right. But like, yeah, it's super exciting to be able to do that 3 times.
Tell me about I'm trying to make the connection between, they testify in front of Congress and then we do an interview. I'm trying to make the connection but so tell me what it's like to testify in front of Congress.
Well, it's funny because so many people were you nervous? And I was testifying with a few people that had done it before also, and they were freaking out, like in the behind the scenes and everything. I like public speaking. I like communicating. I did Toastmasters here again on Long Island for quite a few years. And so, and we were coming in as the good guys in general, right? Like I kind of like, I wasn't getting grilled. The week beforehand, Mark Zuckerberg was sitting in the same seat that I was in, and it didn't go as well, right? Because he wasn't necessarily the good guy. So in my case, every time I've spoken to the media, to government, and they're bringing me in as the subject matter expert of what do I see, boots on the ground, and how are we doing this? How are we solving this problem for consumers? And again, in a privacy conscious way. I can't say that enough, right? If we did it and we were, scraping all your data and doing all this nefarious stuff, like we shouldn't have a business. And that's what government wants to say. And then they always say like, oh, the carriers should be doing more and whatever. In front of Congress, I'm sitting next to the Verizon and the AT&T guy, so I'm not going to say no. But like, honestly, I don't think that this is the carrier's job. There's a certain bulk right at the bottom of the known obvious scams and spams that are coming through that potentially it is table stakes for the carriers to do. But do you really want the carriers making a decision on what gets through, what calls you can make? You think about it being on the business side of things. There was a pretty well-known example here with Planned Parenthood trying to get a short code, not really used too much in marketing or things, but the organization that gives out those short codes denied Planned Parenthood one. Now, talk about whatever your politics are. Do you want that, right? Do you want some government or some organization, some company or the government, whatever, telling you what the message that you can send or what's not getting through? Maybe to a point, right? Like a certain level. But I personally think that it belongs in the hands of consumers to choose what they want to receive. And some people, they might want to get more aggressive, like our Max product does our nice screening and people seem to like that. Other people might want just a basic level, protect me from the spams and the scams. That's the way we build our stuff.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I mean, you don't need corporations coming in and making decisions. Then you start having their political viewpoints or societal viewpoints in your phone.
Yeah. When you take it back to those like first principles, like what are we talking about here, right? It's humans, it's consumers, it's people like you and me and all of your listeners, right? Not wanting to be bothered every 10 seconds by unwanted messages. Now, how you go and do that, there's 1,000 different ways, right? I personally think that Nomorobo is the best way to do it. We give you a 2-week free trial, right? Try it on out. And, we have a family plan so you can go and protect your, like I've architected the business around all of those problems. And it's not like a bolt on or an add on later on. That's like, oh, okay. Even like with Black Friday, we're talking now before Thanksgiving of 2023. Everybody's, oh, what's going to be your Black Friday sale? Like, we don't do any of that. We just do a really good product and we make it easy for people to try out and we make it privacy conscious. And I think that where we are in 2023 or whatever, that's where I think you've seen all the carriers are going to do. I think you're seeing all the government can do laws, regulations. FCC has really stepped up their game. They've been, if you want to go into this whole thing, they're doing a really good job. The regulators are really doing a good job. We all have to come together, but effectively, and even the consumers, they have to take a little bit of a stand on this also.
Sure. Okay, let's jump off of Nomorobo for a few minutes. You have another really cool title, Entrepreneur in Residence. I love that. I love that title. Tell us what an entrepreneur in residence means.
Yeah, sure. So this is over at Hofstra University it's called the Idea Hub, but it's the Center for Entrepreneurship. Hofstra was super smart a couple years back when they saw that entrepreneurship at the college level, at the university level, is where everything starts, right? It's a lot of really smart students with a lot of, especially even over at Hofstra with healthcare, with tech, with engineering, and they want to kind of like wrap their arms around all that and bring all that. And entrepreneurship is multidisciplinary, right? you can be a designer and there's a spot for you in a startup, and you can be a programmer and there's a spot for you there. And so they built, it's called the Idea Hub, and they brought in really great people to serve as, they call them mentors. Again, entrepreneur in residence, where you kind of like advise. I like the term like coach, right? If this was a sports team, I can't tell you, I can't put the ball in your hand and whatever. And I can only tell you what I see based on my experience. And like, ultimately it's up for you to put in the work. And I can't tell you how I wish I could tell you how to make your startup successful, right? Hey, follow this path. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is I've seen a lot of stuff, and I can tell you all of the ways that it's going to fail. So don't argue with me, but just here, if I tell you this, this, and this, then just tell me, how are you going to test and make sure that you don't go down that path? And that's really what an entrepreneur in residence is able to do. People just come into me, pitch their ideas. I work them through how to do a presentation, how to do a pitch. What are the things that they need to go and de-risk? How are you getting customer feedback? And also, my least favorite thing to do at Hofstra is teach, but that's what I do also. I teach an MBA, an executive MBA class and a master's class over there, bringing that into the classroom and working them through a process similar to Techstars.
So talk to me, and I don't know to what degree, but talk to me about some of the interesting things that you've seen. I mean, entrepreneur, you have to see a ton of business ideas come across your desk or your meeting room. What are some of the ones that you've seen that have been super successful that we may have heard of?
So it's not so much the interesting ideas as much as the interesting people. So here's a really great example. There was one of the students that won a Digital Remedy business plan competition a couple years back. Super, very driven. She was great. And I worked with her at a business plan competition that was sponsored by the Draper family. And I'm watching Shark Tank one Friday night, and the doors open, and who walks down that aisle over there but her? And I was like, wait a sec. I paused it and I took out my phone and showed my partner Carrie. I was like, oh, look, check that. Like, that's me and her and whatever. So and it's funny because those were the people, not to say the people I believe in. I believe in everybody that's going on, but she was one of the ones I was like, I'm here to help you, reach out and everything. And she was just like super talented in that way. And not saying that Shark Tank is the be all and end all or anything, but like, that just shows that you were able to do a real good pitch. You have a good product. You have something that people want. And then you were able to make it that you were on the show. So I think that she was one of the best business, best idea. It doesn't even matter. People even ask me like, what do you think of my idea? I don't answer that question. It doesn't matter what I just don't. They're like, well, is it a good idea? I'm like, I have no idea. What you need to do is ask the market that, and the market will come back and tell you if it's a good idea, and do that earlier before you've burned up, 80 or 90 grand in seed funding. And then the worst thing, this is better than what people ask me. The worst thing what they do is if they come to me and say, what should I do now? And my only advice is like, build a time machine and see me 2 years ago. Like, that's the only, now we just have to I don't know what to tell you. You've gone down such a bad path here. First off, stop, put down the shovel. You're in a hole, stop digging. Let's figure out how we can kind of pull this on out. But that's why I love being involved at Hofstra. I'm at the very, very beginning when I feel that I and we, the other entrepreneurs in residence, the other mentors, the other coaches, can make the biggest impact to make sure that the trajectory increases the odds for success.
That's one of what you had said just a minute ago. I get asked that question, obviously, from interviews and talking to entrepreneurs. That's what do you think of this? What do you think? Especially in the online marketing space, people will show me stuff and like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, my opinion doesn't matter. It really, and your opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't. You've got to ask the customers, the potential customers, and find out who it is. What are some of your big red flags that you see? People walk in with ideas, and what's the ones that jump out? This is certainly for entrepreneur startups. What are the ones that jump out? Say, whoa, dude.
Yeah, this is, I think, maybe the cardinal sin of idea pitching, whatever, at the very start, is you telling me, and not that I'm like God or be all and end all, but you telling anyone, an investor or whatever, why your product is going to be so successful. It's immediate, and what I try and tell everybody is I don't really care what you think. Nobody cares what you think. You don't care what I think. Nobody cares what I think. What you need to do is show that the market wants this. Right? That's the key. If you come in and you think your idea is great, that's amazing. That's awesome. Okay. But when you say, hey, look, we have this many people that are using our beta. This is what happened when we launched this horrible version of it, and look at all the traction that we've gotten. You may not know about whatever X, Y, and Z. One student that I worked with was really into mycology, like growing mushrooms, and he wanted to start a whole, edible mushroom, like a high capacity kind of thing. I don't know anything about growing mushroom. I have no idea about that. And he was like, well, what should I do? Oh, he has to get the spot. I'm like, how about grow mushrooms and go to a farmer's market? Talk to your customers. What do they want? What are the types that they want? How is it being grown right now in this example, whatever it may be? Another student, really, really talented team, they won a business plan competition. They were calling it the auto walk. It's an automated walk, and they've mimicked the throwing motion of a chef to be able to bring that to like fast casual Asian restaurants. Cool, right? So you can show me all the CAD work, and you can show me that this is what it's going to look like. That's great, right? You can even have a prototype. I hope you do. But like, what does, whatever, the Chinese restaurant down the street, what does Panda Express? What would that be? If you come and tell me, hey, I had a meeting with Panda Express, which is what they did. It's like, it came to me like, and then I said, how did you get that? And because they didn't have a prototype or anything, it's like, we filled out a form on the website and they called us up. It's amazing, right? Like, those are the kinds of things, like, show me that the market wants your idea. Don't just tell me. It just turns everybody off too. And if the more you tell me, the more you try and convince me, when I say me, anyone, that it's the good idea, it's the best idea, it's great or whatever, stop. Just stop. And then because the other way is really hard to do. Build a prototype. Build something that you're embarrassed of, right? Like the first version of anything that you do, you should look back and be like, how did I look? Even with Nomorobo, I'll be honest. Like I flipped on the switch, and it was like the accuracy was in the toilet. The false positive rate was through the roof. We were stopping like calls. We were stopping like alarm companies. It was terrible. Like, had I known that on day one, I never would have launched. But the need was still there, and it got the press coverage and it got all those pieces, and then you make it better. So yeah, if I were to tell everybody, oh, you need this, and you knocked on Verizon's door and AT&T and all these other things, let me show you how great my algorithms are. And yeah, okay. On the other hand, it's like, this is the traction that we're getting. Here is what we're doing. Here's how many robocalls we're blocking. Here is what Panda Express is, the letter of intent. Here is what we're going to be doing over there. That is, if there's just one cardinal sin of everything, don't tell me what's going on. Show me, and show me how the market has told you that you're on the right track.
And I use this on a much more of a terrestrial level, in that I see stores opening, and people use the concept of, well, there's another shop here, or there's another idea. Maybe there's 10 robo killers, and they say, well, I want to be number 11. The market's this big. I can take my 10% piece of the market. And that's it's not realistic. Do you see that a lot? People coming in and they give the numbers. They say the market is this big, and if I take 0.5% of this market.
So 100%, I see this all the time. Working backwards from the market. That's what they find the big market, and then they say we're going to go. But like, even if there is a huge market, like, how are you going to get into it? How are you right? Wouldn't it be great? Or if I get 0.5%, how are you going to get that 0.5%? And everybody's like, well, that's where it stops. The thinking only goes into and I hate all those, like, the slides on like Tam and Sam and Mam and Ming and Bing. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, you know what I think? I'm like, I don't even care about the competition. I really like, or how big the market is. You know what I care about is that you're making a product that people want. You are solving. I'm just going to assume the market is huge and you're making the problem better. You are solving a real problem. Because again, like, how many hamburger restaurants are? Which is better, McDonald's or Burger King? It's a stupid question. It doesn't even matter, right? Is there more than enough room for Burger King and McDonald's and Five Guys and 17 other? I don't know, a person who pitched me, they want to start a pizza place. If you're going to be looking at competition, I think there's like 1 or 2 pizza places here on Long Island, like 1 or 2 per strip mall, right? Drive down Jericho Turnpike and you're like, I'm not going to say that. Like, oh, there's enough of them. Like, well, okay, what is going to differentiate you? You know, it's not just the best pizza or whatever. Better question is like, where are you going to be putting this thing? And why? If you put it next door to a pizza place, you know, an existing pizza place, maybe that's the right thing. Maybe it's the wrong thing, right? Maybe that pizza place has gotten really bad recently, or maybe it's gotten really expensive recently. And you're going to come in, you're going to do quality, and you're going to do it less expensive. now we're talking. But if you're just going to say like, right, the pizza market is worth whatever, $3 billion. I don't know. I don't think it's valuable.
Yeah. So you and I, we shared a space. We had an office in a tech center called Launchpad. And on Main Street on Launchpad, it was on Main Street in Huntington. And there was an olive oil place. I don't know if you remember this. It was an olive oil place. And it must have been doing okay. But I mean, I don't know how big the market really could be for olive oil. And then a few months later, another one is chains of olive oil. And one opened across the street. And all I'm sitting here thinking is, the market's not that big, and you're not differentiating yourself enough. You're selling olive oil, and I don't want to demean anybody selling olive oil, but how big for the general consumer? It's olive oil, right? And just they had to have gone and think the market's huge. We'll take this guy's business. Well, at the very least, the very best you're going to do is take half the business, and then you're both doing half the business. And
again, it's going to be the question. So again, if somebody came to me, I'm going to start an olive oil shop. Awesome. Cool. I don't know if people, whatever pricing that, but like how, and we're going to put it on Main Street in Huntington. Great. Wonderful. There's one of them there. How are you going to be successful? And like, it can't be BS answers. It can't be, we're going to hire an influencer. It can't be, we're going to, give disc. It can't be an also thought. What I want to see is if I was doing that pitch, right? Like, your problem with olive oil stores today is whatever, or the problem with the olive oil stores on Long Island, or the problem with olive oil stores is that ... Now, I don't know what that may be. Maybe there aren't any problems, right? Maybe it just, but there's got to be something. It's too expensive. It's in a bad location. Sure. It's only open from like 2 p.m. till 3:30. I don't know. And then you kind of you can do all that for free at the that's business planning. Business planning is not just like putting together a business plan. I know it sounds stupid, but like this 40-page thing with charts and graphs and market, whatever. Just give me a one-pager on like, tell me the problem, tell me what the situation is, tell me how you're going to be better, and then let's work backwards from that. What is going to be your unique way of doing that? And if that's baked in from the beginning, you have a much better chance of survival than, I don't know, we'll figure it out. And to your point with the Huntington, there is two really good, there's Rosa's Pizza place, Rosa's Pizza and Little Anthony's. Which one of those is better? And a third one just opened, right? Like literally you can walk to all three of those.
I used to joke with my wife about this because we were right above Rosa's Pizza and at Launchpad, and then Little Anthony's, whatever that was, opened across the street. And all I'm sitting there going, was there a giant influx of pizza eaters, or do you think people aren't eating pizza because they don't want to cross Main Street?
Who knows, right? And what I would say to anybody is like, yeah, if you want to open the fourth pizza place on Main Street, I'm going to say like, do some research, right? Just figure it out. Just tell me, maybe it'll be, go with me here, those like dollar slice places in the city. Maybe you're like, look, the problem with all the pizza places is, and the prices keep on going up and everything, and there's a ton of bars around on Long Island, and everybody's drunk and they want to eat cheap pizza. They don't care about the quality, right? So we're going to stay open late, and we're going to charge 99 cents a slice. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's a one way. Now all of a sudden you're talking. We're going to have the cheapest, most disgusting pizza, but drunk people are going to love it. I don't know, right? But like, that's way better. You're going to start off, at least you're opinionated. At least you're like, oh yeah, I can understand. That's going to be the reputation. Should we go to Little Anthony's? No, let's go to the cheap pizza place. Okay. I can't tell you it's going to be successful. Right?
In my mind, I'm thinking how many people are actually going, that's not a bad idea. Certainly in a college town, that's a good idea. But
that's the part that I think, and again, you and I have worked together again at Launchpad, and we do these things called Startup Weekend, and it's put on by the Techstars organization, but people come in from all over the world. They come in on a Friday, and on Sunday, they're pitching a business. Basically, on Friday night, everybody pitches ideas, and then people kind of like team up, and then there's, let's say 5 or 6 teams and companies that get formed on Friday night. Saturday is all about customer discovery and kind of doing all these kinds of pieces. And then Sunday, you're pitching to a panel of investors. And when you have 54 hours, you're forced to answer these questions, and you're forced to literally go down to Rosa's Pizza and ask people, or stand outside of Rosa's and say like, hey, we're thinking about starting a new pizza place and we want it to be really cheap. How much do you care about? Right? Whatever it may be. And again, I have a whole bunch of books that I usually recommend in this case to get like the answers to the questions that you need to ask. And if you just go and do that, everybody thinks like, oh no, I'm going to spend whatever 6 months and write a big business plan. I'm never leaving the house. And I'm just, look at how much work I'm doing. Like, yeah, but do the right work. And that's the part that I really feel gets lost in every business book and every business podcast. And obviously the present company excluded, right? But like getting another podcast from another HBS person who's telling like how Google manages X, Y, and Z. It's a startup is not a little company. A startup is not a mini Google. A startup is a completely different kind of entity. It doesn't have a business model. It might be solving something that doesn't exist, or it's entrepreneurship is, again, it's just, they're not little companies. There's something, it's not like a baby is a small adult. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like a baby needs you got to feed the baby, right? If you don't feed that baby, it's going to die. It needs to, you got to change its diaper. You don't have to worry about the baby's 401k. Yes, I know that in theory it will come, but it's fine. You got time to worry about the 401k. You don't have time to worry about the mashed carrots. And again, if you say like, oh no, I'm just going to do everything for this baby that I do for myself, just small. Okay, so instead of contributing, whatever, 20 grand to my 401k, baby's only going to contribute $50 to it. Like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
So then let me ask you a question. It's a quick question, I think. We were just talking about these. You made a comment about business plans. When we went to college, we took a business course and we all sat and wrote 50, 60, 100-page business plans. And that was, have you ever read past the first 2 pages in a business plan? Why are we taught in college that you need, in lieu of the research that you would do on the street, asking how much they would pay for a slice of pizza?
So the question, why? Because that's the way people have done it, right? That's why do all businesses kind of look the same, right? Like established businesses, because that's what people have been doing for all these years. And when you're a startup, right, a lot of this stuff is brand new. And when I say brand new, it's within the last, 5 to 10 years. 10 years on the business scale of things and it's scary to a lot of people to say like, well, get out of the building. Talk to humans. And I hear this all the time. Oh, well, they're going to steal my idea. Nobody's going to steal your idea, right? Don't worry about that. I've literally never seen it happen. And if all that it's going to take is somebody to like overhear it and then they're going to run and build it better, it's not a business you should be in. And this was honestly even at Hofstra, when they asked me to teach the innovation and entrepreneurship classes, they said, what are my constraints? Because I'm not teaching from the normal textbooks. And they said, like, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And then it's what I did. First thing, talk about problems. I don't talk about like, what is the problem? What is the solution? We're brainstorming from there. I don't even care what the problem is. Maybe it's in your industry. Maybe you wake up and there's something with the toothpaste. I don't know. But then the next piece is about how to do a quick pitch right now, and then fill in how people are doing it right now. We are going to blah, blah, blah. That's the stuff that is really important at the beginning. Then you can get to your demo. Then you can get to all those pieces. And then finally at the end, when you've talked to customers, when you've done all that, put together a 1 or 2 page business plan pitch along with your either 3-minute or 6-minute pitch. That's what you need to do. If I have one thing to tell people to do, like do it in that order. Don't start from the great idea, then go to the patent and go to the business plan and then talk to the banker and you're a lawyer. Like, Sue, the person you're not talking to, your customer, right? The person who's going to be buying this, the person who has this problem, the person who needs this. But that's the scariest part. You talk to your friends, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Patting you on I'm going to go and quit my job. Oh, that's amazing. Yes, you should do that.
Yes.
But like, I don't know. That's rare. On the other hand, and startups are tough, man. And just being like, the thing that's going to get you past each day is knowing like what you're trying to accomplish. I saw this, I won't name names. One of the teams that I was working with on a product that I could tell, and it was in a class, I could tell that they weren't interested in it. It was to a target market that wasn't them. They liked the idea and whatever. And we started talking, and I was like, this sure feels like you should be aiming at your target market. And their eyes lit up. And they're like, well, that's what we want to do, but so many people have told us that's too niche. I'm like, do that. I was like, really? You're like, it doesn't even matter. You'll figure that whole thing out. But if you're just doing this is a marathon, man. That's not gonna get you through just being like and trying to build somebody else's idea.
That's you made the comment. Tell your idea to your friends and your wife, your husband, and they love the idea. And the only thing I think that's actually worse than that is when you ask people that really don't understand and they say, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's probably more depressing for people, for entrepreneurs, than anything else.
Well, I mean, I have two quick recommendations. Again, if anybody is still listening to this point, right? Two of the best books that I find, and I recommend, I use them in my class and whatever, but the first one's called The Mom Test. It's by Rob Fitzpatrick. And it does exactly what you just said. It tells you how to ask questions of people so that they can't lie to you. And the reason it's called the mom test is, right, you ask your mom's going to say, everything is wonderful. She literally applauded for you when you pooped the first time, right? Like, nobody applauds for you when you poop anymore. But, right, it asks, like, how are you doing it now? Is a question that nobody can lie, right? Like, do you love this idea? Yeah, everybody can and will lie. So, and it's a pretty short book. I always recommend the mom test for customer development. And the second book, and I'll get a plug in for him because he's going to come and speak at Hofstra next semester. We haven't even actually announced it's called, it's by Brant Pinvidic, and it's called The 3-Minute Rule. And this might be a book that some of your viewers have read it. It is an amazing way of being able to distill down all of your ideas. Again, it's a business, and he was a television producer. He created Biggest Loser, Bar Rescue, a lot of those kinds of ideas. Basically, they would come up with TV shows and then have to pitch them to network executives. So these are, again, and they would have to make like kind of teasers and things. But like, he figured out the old way was doing 20-minute pitches and explaining this and explaining the market and explaining it. Or you can hook them in with three, and it's called WHAC, WHAC. What do you do? How do you do it? Are you sure? Can you prove it? And if you walk through that way, so many people flip it on its, like are you sure you can do it? Like they put the team first. You ever seen a pitch that starts out with like listing off all the whole team? Nobody knows who you are. They don't care. They have no context for any of this. And you could have, like, again, 6 PhDs, and this person invented that, and that person worked at Google, and then at Facebook, and this person worked at But like, that's great if you're going to be selling like a sandwich shop. What do you do? This is the thing I always try and get. And those two books are great. What do you do? How do you do it? Right? And then these questions, who are you doing it for? And then again, don't give me your business model up front, the revenue model. I don't care about any of that. I'm going to assume that if you were solving a problem, that there will be a way to monetize that, right? There better be, right? If you're solving a problem and a way to monetize it big, we'll figure it out. Is it going to be a software as a service? Is it going to be retail? Is it going to be whatever it may be? And then you roll in all the other pieces, the marketing and the email and the social media. But anyway, what do you do? Right? That's number one. What do you do? How do you do it? Who do you do it for? Those first couple of things that if you're just meeting somebody, those are the pieces that I really try and get across, again, as an entrepreneur in residence, as an entrepreneur, as a startup guy, as a all of the things that we've been talking about. It's the pieces that I try and get to people and break through, because I don't know why, but like the standard way of doing things what's the market? And then we're going to get 1% of it seems to be the predominant way that people think. And like, it's my personal mission to get people to not think that way.
You're an entrepreneur. You've started up a number of companies. You counsel people as an entrepreneur in residence. I'm going to ask you this question. Is entrepreneurship for everyone?
Really good question. I've always gotten asked that, like, can you teach entrepreneurship? And I'm torn because the simple answer is I don't believe you can teach entrepreneurship. You can probably teach some fundamentals. Can you teach somebody to be good at basketball? You can teach them the rules of the game and the pieces and things like that. That's like, say, is basketball for everyone? The simple answer is yes. For most people, anybody can play basketball. You can give me a basketball and I will play very, very poorly, right? And I will not enjoy it. But like, is basketball not for, like, is it not for me? No, anybody can go and pick up the ball and whatever. Is writing for everybody? Well, I have Word, right? You crack open Word. Having Word doesn't make you a writer. So I think that the simple answer is that entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, but you have to figure out who those people are or if it's for you. And the way that you do that is by doing small bites and proving out hypotheses and de-risking the biggest problems, right? So if you can go and figure that out. I've seen some terrible entrepreneurs that created great startups. And I've seen some amazing like business people and whatever that can't entrepreneur themselves out of a paper bag. So the key that I would say, and maybe I'm not answering the question, but you got to figure out if entrepreneurship is for you. And you do that the same way everybody should do it. Come up with a problem, find the solution, do customer development, find out if you're on that right track. And you might have to do that 10, 15, 20 times, right? Your first idea, before you even build anything, or maybe you prototype it out or something like that. You throw it together with a couple of dollars before you do anything. I say that I don't care if you are, Sergey Brin, one of the founders of Google, if you're Elon Musk, maybe he can probably do other things, or if you're some guy who's going to be starting a pizza place, right? It's the same thing. Even big companies, right? They're not going to take big risks. They're going to go and find, hey, how do you know that this is going to work? How can we step into a market and know that? Now, again, just because you even think like Slack or something that was just communication or whatever, but like, hey, here's what companies need. Okay, cool. What have you done that? And let's start out. Again, if you have a technical team, build out that prototype, get it into people's hands. Don't worry about charging them, get that feedback and those kinds of things. And then work for it. So the answer is entrepreneurship is both for everyone and not for everyone. And I think ultimately, honestly, entrepreneurship is the great leveler because it doesn't take any permission. There's no gatekeeper. You don't have to ask anybody to be an entrepreneur. Like, you don't have to go and apply to be, you just have to do it. And all of a sudden you start. And again, double-edged sword. That means anybody can do it. Anybody can fire open Word and write terribly. Anybody can try and be an influencer by having a social media account. Okay. Anybody can be an entrepreneur by saying they are an entrepreneur or whatever, but to go through that process. And again, I'm a big fan, especially in underserved communities, lower socioeconomic status, historically disadvantaged groups. Absolutely. And that's why I work with an organization called the Five Ventures, which helps formerly incarcerated people to change their life through entrepreneurship. Right. So these are people who have been in prison, felons, right? Like you try applying for a job when you have a criminal record. You're not going to get a ton of people coming in, but you know what? If you can go and prove it on out, and some of these guys are amazing business people, admittedly, not legal businesses, right? So if you ever think like the world is against, yes, the universe is rooting for you not to succeed. It doesn't want you to succeed, but entrepreneurship, at least if you go through these steps, I think you have a better chance of succeeding than trying to apply for a job or get into this whole thing or, getting some certification or anything like that. So that's why I think that's really what drives me. I think everybody, if they look at the right frameworks, at least take that first step, come up with the problem, come up with a solution, talk to people about it, go from there. Come to the resources. Again, I can only talk on Long Island, in your local area, whatever. Right? Our doors are always open. Again, come on over to Hofstra. Say you found us over here. Our job is to say hello and work with every single person to make that happen. Come to a startup weekend event. Come to a launchpad event. All the time. Just find me. Like my first thing is so what are you working on? Give me your pitch. And then the next thing I'm going to say is, I know you met me 10 minutes ago, but here's how I would do your pitch. Or if I'm reading it correctly, if I'm hearing you correctly, you want to, right now, and for this group of people, they're like, yeah, it's exactly right. It's like, okay, here is what I think that have you figured out this? What about this? What about this risk? And you walk them on through. And then literally 99 out of 100 people I never see again, which maybe because they think I'm an a-hole. I don't know, but whatever. But that one person though will come back next week and be like, hey, I was thinking about what you did. Can I do my pitch next? And they do the pitch again. I'm like, that's spectacular, right? Pitch to Shark Tank, come to a business plan competition. Those are the people that really get that ball rolling.
You made the comment about people that are incarcerated and some of the amazing business people you watch. And I hate to say this, but you watch on TV and they have the stories. And sometimes I look and I'm like, why didn't he just do something legal? Because that's a brilliant business person. Just
so many startups going to startup to ex-con or felon, right? Rather than felon to startup.
Yeah, exactly. So, Aaron, thank you very much. That was a very interesting interview. I really appreciate it. I'm sure my listeners are going to appreciate it too. Give us a follow down below at YouTube hit that bell button and we'll get you notified every time we release a new interview. Aaron, go right ahead.
If I can make a plug here, right? Go to nomorobo.com. Take our free trial, see what's going. If you have your robocall or text problem, check me out on LinkedIn too. I'm not big on any other social media, but again, if you want to reach out, if you're in the Long Island area, come see me at an event. My doors are definitely open. Get those books. And I'll tell you this much, right? Like if you are watching this and kind of on the fence or whatever, if you put together a 3-minute pitch with some of these things, it will be good for every single person that so I tell people all the time, I'm like, send me your pitch. Oh, I don't have one. Well, put together your 3-minute pitch, right? Whatever that may be. Again, grab Brandt's book, grab whatever. Because then for anybody, they'll be able to, hey, that's a great, can you check this out and tell me what you think? You'll be able to give it to somebody else, send it to Hofstra. We'll be able to send it around. Hey, to this mentor, this team looks like it's right up your alley and that kind of thing. So I really encourage everybody. So I'm here to help everybody on Long Island succeed, whether you are, right, you've had successful exits or, right, you've just been released from prison. Cool. Come on over. We're going to help you out.
Amazing. All those links will be in the show notes down below. Aaron, again, thank you very much. Everybody, have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet Long Island. We certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, leave them in the comments or reach out to us directly. Remember to subscribe, and we hope to have you back for the next exciting episode of Meet Long Island.